Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today we would talk about the Bardelas. This is a new vehicle that's come to the Israeli tech tree in the recent updates. I ended up spading it and it was kind of interesting. It's definitely a thinking man's vehicle because you have to think a lot more in this compared to a lot of the other vehicles around this BR. The Bardelas is based on the M113, and it has basically the mobility of one. It's not too bad when spaded, but when stock, it feels really rough. One of the things that actually really kind of took me out of it was its turning circle. For some reason, this thing's turning circle is massive compared to many other vehicles, and it made it a little bit harder to get it around the place. The other part of it is it, of course, has this 60mm HVMS gun. Now, if you are a person who's played the Italian tech tree, you may have seen this gun before. You have it on the HVG in the Orbal, the event vehicle, and then also that very high-powered light tank with the 2-second reload. Well, this vehicle, the 60mm on the Bardelas, doesn't have the 2-second reload. It has an aced 5-second reload, but what it does have is it has the M300 round. Now, this round, you get stock. You don't actually research any of the ammunition modifications with this thing. You just get both of them stock. You get a HE, which is pretty useless, and then you also get the M300, which is going to be the round that you use. You only get 23 rounds with this thing as well, so it doesn't carry a lot of ammunition, so you're going to be carrying the 23 APF SDSs. There were times where I just ran out of ammo with this, which obviously wasn't very fun. But this ammo is interesting at 7.7. It has quite good penetration on the flat, 249mm, and at the same time it has really good muzzle velocity. The optics on this thing aren't great, but with that great muzzle velocity, it's very hard to miss. It's quite easy to be accurate with the vehicle. But the problem is the post-penetration effect is horrifically bad because it's a 60mm. Anything under a 90mm in this game, or maybe I suppose an 85mm, really struggles with post-penetration effect, especially when it comes to APF SDS and even APDS, which is way worse, so thank God it doesn't have this. But because of the high penetration, if you know where to aim when trying to hit ammunition or when to try and knock out specific crew members, you can do that with the Bardelas. And since the reload, as long as you're not facing all of the autoloaders of this BR, is a little bit better compared to most manual loaded vehicles, you can get 2 shots off to their 1, which is quite good. But there's a problem with this gun, and it isn't really the round. The round is okay, as I said. You will really need to think about where you're shooting vehicles, though, especially when you run into stuff like Mouse, which are quite popular right now because of the November event, but overall, you'll be able to destroy anything. You just need to really think about where you're shooting them. Whereas a lot of other vehicles of this BR, you can kind of just shoot center mass and hope for the best. That's not something you can do with the Bardelas. You have to aim at specific areas. So, with that, you have to think about where you're aiming against vehicles, right? Now, if you have a look at the Bardelas, first of all, you have 2 machine guns on the side of this. These machine guns are 7.62mm FN mags. They're pretty much useless. You can use them against helicopters and then some planes that come in. The main thing that's the problem with them is they get in the way of your turret, which means that your gun has to elevate above them to be able to look behind you. So it's just easier to turn the whole vehicle instead of actually turning your turret 360, because you have to wait for the gun to go up and down, and the vertical speed on it is not exactly great. The next part is if you have a look at the front of the Bardelas, there is a cupola on the front left-hand side, and then also there is an exhaust pipe on the front right-hand side. Both of these are physically modeled. So that means if you actually angle your vehicle how you're supposed to be able to defend against, rounds coming in, you will not be able to actually get your gun on the target, because you can only fire upwards. The elevation is there. You cannot actually fire at 0 degrees. So when you're engaging enemies, you either have to look straight at them with the Bardelas, or something that I personally did, which is basically perpendicular. So you take a 90-degree angle against them, and you use the side of the Bardelas to be able to get the gun on target. And this means that you don't have to worry about losing your gun depression, which isn't great anyway, but, you know, it's better than having a positive elevation all the time. And it means that, you know, you can actually get your gun on target. And that's the problem with this thing. There's so many things you have to think about when other vehicles of this BR, you don't really have to think about at all. And that's what makes it, maybe for some people, really interesting, but others, it will make it frustrating. If you compare it to, let's say, a meta vehicle around this BR, like a light tank, maybe like an AML-90, for example, or something like a Char 25T, these vehicles are rapid, they're very mobile, obviously they're very aggressive scouts, their guns do a lot of post-penetration damage, and they just feel really nice to scoot around and go crazy. With the Bardelas, it's slower, it has weirder gun angles, and also the penetration on the round means that you have to really aim with it and really think what you're doing. So if you're looking for a vehicle that is easy, that is something that you can just kind of push certain areas with and then just kind of hit stuff with and just move on to the next, you know, with some nice HE filler or with nice APF SDS, this is not the vehicle. This vehicle is if you want to try something a little bit different and have a bit of a different playstyle. Another thing that's kind of annoying about this is it doesn't have any secondary factors. So what I mean by this is it doesn't have thermals, which is fair, but it also doesn't have access to smoke grenades. Smoke grenades would help this vehicle so much in trying to reposition. Surprisingly, I actually survived quite a lot of shots getting shot in this thing. No idea how, but yeah, that was quite nice. But in order to reposition with it, it would be really nice to have smoke grenades. It does have scouting, which is nice, and obviously the gun itself has a stabilizer, meaning in most engagements you can get the first shot off, which is why it's incredibly key for you to be able to take advantage of that, so therefore you can hammer the enemy. Now right now, there's some pretty crazy vehicles at 8.3, the T58, and also the Term 3. These are monsters compared to the Bardelas and will just annihilate you. But a lot of the matchmaking I did get was 6.7 to 7.7 or 7.0 to 8.0. And there was a lot of heavy tanks which we were just able to kind of plink to death with very small needles. And it actually felt pretty nice when it actually worked out, especially when you're aiming at the back of the Tiger 2 turret or the side of a mouse, and you just were able to make them pop. It was quite nice. Also, the BR of this thing is not too bad. The 7.7 BR, you have the shot, you have the Hobbits, you have the early Magax, you have the AML-90 as well in the Israeli tech tree, so there is quite a nice lineup around it. And the other thing is, this is the BR where you actually get CAS. If this thing was lower BR, like 7.3, you were stuck at 5.7 CAS, which is no good. But because it's at 7.7, you can bring the Meteor NF13 and also the Oregon, which they just added a premium version of for some reason. This vehicle also, when it was on the dev server, was called the Zelda, which I thought was a pretty cool name. But also the Bardelas is a fantastic name too, so it's generally not lost out there. We ended up spading this thing in 32 battles, which was pretty quick for a 7.7 vehicle. 59% win rate, 70 ground kills, 2 air kills, and 28 deaths. So we went about a 2.5 to 1 for a scout with low damage. I would say that was actually pretty nice. One of the things I would also like to mention about this vehicle, you needed all of its modifications to actually feel like you were doing stuff. You need all of the mobility modifications to get this chassis going. You needed all of the kind of horizontal drive, the elevation mechanism, the adjustment of fire to get the gun going for it. So it only gets better the more modifications that you get, and it gets better in a very large way. So that kind of KD would improve as you go along. But just understand there are going to be frustrating moments with this thing where you pen targets and nothing will happen. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.